We're joined on the phone today by actress Tami Stronach. You might remember her as the Childlike Empress in the film The NeverEnding Story. But today we're talking about her new film that's in the works, Man and Witch. Hi, Tami. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for joining me.
Sure.
Well, first, can you tell us a bit about the new film you've got in the works here, Man and Witch? What are the listeners in for with this one?
So Man and Witch is something that my husband and I cooked up in the kitchen. And I was doing some Comic-Cons recently, and I kept running into people who were talking about how they really miss 80s fantasy films and where did the genre of film go. And so we were like, why don't we just make one? We have a children's company a content company called Paper Canoe, and we've been making plays and albums and things here in New York, and we just decided to expand into film. So what it is it's a really classic 80s fantasy film. We're going to be going back to all of the sort of handmade feel of those films. We have the Jim Henson Company making our puppets for us, which I'm so excited about. And then we're bringing on board people who, in my opinion, are sort of iconic 80s people. Like we have Rhea Perlman playing my mom and Christopher Lloyd. The narrator is Sean Astin. So faces and voices that are, I think it's like a giant nostalgia fest. But it's going to be updated in the sense that it's going to have a much more diverse world. I think some of those 80s movies, especially for girls, felt really sexist. So we're going to have strong heroine-ish roles. I get to play a witch who transforms. So I'm kind of excited that we're both mining the classic side of things and giving them little updated twists.
Awesome, yeah. Not only are you starring in the film, you're the executive producer, your husband wrote it. Just hearing you talk about it, obviously this is a very important film for you.
Definitely, it really is, and it's fun because a lot of people are wondering, well, where did I go, and did I stop acting, and what happened? And I actually became a dancer for a long time. I had my own dance company in New York for 20 years, and this film, because my husband wrote it, it's really our courtship made into fantasy form. So we say based on a true story, although of course it's in this crazy fantastical world. And there's a huge dance number in it, which will be kind of a reference to those dance movies. Like Strictly Ballroom is in the 90s, but we're being kind of flexible with our the movies that we're inspired by, and Dirty Dancing. There's sort of a lot of funny references to those kinds of films that we all grew up on too.
Well, and you mentioned the cast, which is unbelievable. Christopher Lloyd, Sean Astin, Rhea Perlman, just a few of them. And if you were to just get one of them, it would be amazing. But I don't know how you managed to get all these people on board.
I don't know how we did either. I'm being really honest with you. We are not this huge Hollywood machine. This is really our indie film. But I think because of maybe COVID and people being less busy than a normal time, we were able to get the script into the hands of people who perhaps might ordinarily not have read the script. And people just loved the script. So they were like, this sounds fun. Let's do it.
Well, with that being said, with the pandemic shutting things down this year, what's the production looking like? Or are we hoping the film will maybe be out sometime next year? Or?
We are. I mean, everything is dependent on the guidelines that are being set, and we're very, very concerned about following them to the letter. So we're actually adding, my husband's brother runs a hospital in Colorado. He is the head of the hospital there, and we're going to have additional on-site testing. We're going to have temperature taking. We're following all the guidelines. There are different zones where different people are working in. So there are some productions that are happening, but you just have to make a lot of accommodations to keep everybody safe. So we're doing all of those things. There's a bunch of crowd scenes that we're going to have to wait on in the spring. So please, everybody, just wear your masks so COVID goes away so we can take our crowd shots in the spring. Yeah, I mean, we're just going to have to, be at the mercy of this thing, and everyone's dealing with it, and it's just part of the reality right now. How do we find a way to move forward within this new context?
Well, I think once it does come out, this is the perfect time. Man and Witch definitely feels a bit like a spiritual successor, to the NeverEnding Story and those 80s fantasy films. And I know people who are my age now who grew up with that stuff are definitely sharing that with their kids, and it's kind of getting renewed in a way.
I mean, I feel so lucky to have been in the NeverEnding Story because I feel in a way that it's sort of created this club of people that I get to be a part of. I mean, I have my daughter, and I'm sharing with her E.T. and all those kinds of classics from when I grew up, and she absolutely loves them. And I think one of the things that we were discussing is that in a way, CGI is so amazing, and of course, there's films that are just spectacular. The things they can do are just mind-boggling. But sometimes with the assistance of technology, you kind of get so caught up in the bells and whistles that the heart of the story gets lost, and it isn't the sort of central driving engine. And so, our hope and our the thing that we're trying to do is to really bring story and character back to the heart of the thing.
Well, and it definitely has had an impact on people. I even have a brother named Sebastian. So I mean, after all these years, yeah. So I mean, kids grew up loving this movie, and it's did you think it would have that kind of impact after all these years?
No, of course not. I had no idea. I'm still amazed at it, and it's. I think this Michael Ende's story was just really incredible, and I think Wolfgang Peterson just did such an amazing job with it. But I don't think anybody could have guessed that. But speaking of naming children Bastian, our director, Rob Margulies' son is called Bastian. And so when we met him and he was really enthusiastic about the project and he told us that was his son's name, we both looked at each other and we're like, you know what, this is just going to be a real passion project for everyone here. This is just going to be about wanting to make something beautiful for everyone. So that was a fun discovery.
Well, and your daughter is around the age, most kids were when they discovered the film. And I know you mentioned you kind of got out of acting for a while. Could you see your daughter maybe getting into that line of work? Is that something maybe she would be interested in?
Well, she's had a small role in the film, and it's interesting for me to see her suddenly having this opportunity to be on screen at a very similar age to me. But I also feel like after 30 years of being in the entertainment industry in New York, it wasn't the film industry, it was the theater industry. If she does want to go into that line of work, I would be really excited and happy to guide her. And I think it's really important to have guidance as a young person if you're going to go into that line of work. So we'll see. I mean, she can just, she may end up being a marine biologist. She loves so many different things. But if it is a direction she wants to go, I'd be so supportive, and I would make sure to give her the guidance she needs.
Awesome. Well, I know you've done a lot of stuff over the years, as you mentioned. You're a dancer, a yoga instructor, and you're doing stuff behind the camera. What is it that made you want to get back in front of the camera again? Has it just been, all the conventions and everybody talking about the good old days? Or?
I mean, I would say that it has definitely sort of influenced me, but I think that as a young person, I always had this love of dance and this love of acting. And I felt very split between the two. I think that just my personality tends to prefer to be involved not just in the productions, but sort of producing or being, directing. And I felt that I could have a lot more control as the director of a dance company on the worlds that I was building. It was a smaller pond to swim around in, but it was a kind of a role that I could have a little bit more hands and more pies as I was building things. So, but I had this secret plan to get back into acting. And I did a lot of plays in New York, so I wasn't not acting. I was just acting. I was in a theater company for 7 years, and we toured all over the United States. They were called the Flying Machine, and we were the resident company at Soho Rep in New York. So I still was doing a lot of acting, but I would say that Hollywood's not clamoring to let women in their late 40s into the movies. That is a strange time to say, hey, I'd love to get to be back on screen. So, one of the messages of the NeverEnding Story is do what you dream, and don't wait for the world to be the way that you hope it is. Make the world the way you hope it is. And so we just decided to open a side door and make our own production. And I think that in some ways the NeverEnding Story really influenced me because that message of just, if just go build the thing that you want to see happen has really stuck with me.
Excellent. I got kind of an odd question for you.
Okay.
Do you have copies of the Fairy Queen 45? Because I've been
totally
hoping,
do.
I've been hoping to run into those, but never could find one out in the wild.
I have one. We have a record player too, and my daughter listens to it on the record player. I guess we're pretty stuck in the past. I do. I love records. I love just the sound and the feeling of putting them on.
Well, again, Man and Witch sounds like it's going to be amazing, and I hope it comes out sooner than later. And is there anything else, Tami, for you that's coming up, or something else we should be looking out for?
Oh, my goodness. We do have a Paper Canoe children's album that's going to be coming out in the next couple of months. It's called All the Colors. It's our second album. Our first album, Beanstalk Jack, won multiple awards for Best Family Album from 2018. So this is just more music from our company, and it's really fun. It's each song is about a different color in the rainbow, and there are all these different styles. So it's a great way to introduce kids to a really wide range of musical styles, and that'll be coming out in a couple months. And actually, it's really funny you mentioned Fairy Queen, because the second song, the B-side of that, is called Writing on a Rainbow. And after we made the album, All the Colors, my husband's like, why don't we reprise that song? So we're thinking about it. We might just put an updated version of that at the end of the album. But that's it. I'm doing Man and Witch 12 hours a day from morning to midnight every day until we get it to you.
Awesome. Tami, I'm a fan of yours. I have been for a long time, as I mentioned, and it's been great speaking with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dustin. I really had fun. Take care. Bye.
And again, that was Tami Stronach and her new film in the works here, Man and Witch, and hopefully that will be coming out here in 2021.